Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about correlations. Something that should sound familiar to you if correlation does not is scatter plot. So correlation is just telling us that after we plot data on a coordinate plane and plot different points, correlation, another word for it is relationship. So we're going to analyze the scatter plots and see, is there a relationship between the data? And if there is, what type of relationship is it? So during this video, what I want you to do is you should have your paper foldable, and I want you to complete it as we're completing it and you're listening and watching the video. If there's any point that you need to pause the video to catch up on your writing, or say you need to go use the bathroom or something, just pause the video. That's the nice part. You can pause me whenever you want. Go, and then when you are ready, you can come back and resume the video. As well, if you kind of zoned out for a minute and you're like, I have no idea what she just said, you have the ability to back up and rewatch that segment. So this really should be towards your benefit. And you can go back later if things didn't make sense. You can watch it again if you need to. So let's take a look at the foldable, and we're going to be talking about scatter plots again. So what we're looking at are three different scatter plots here. We have our x and our y. So we have our x-axis, our y-axis. The O is just labeling the origin. And then we have a whole bunch of points on our scatter plot. So each one of these represent a different correlation, or something different we're going to call it. So if you look at the front of your foldable, it should have positive correlation, negative correlation, and then no correlation. So we're going to come back and look at these three graphs again and see if we can determine which one matches each of those labels. So take a second and look. So my first question is going to be, which one do you think represents no correlation? So no correlation is going to tell us no relationship. There's no relationship between the points. There's not going to be any trend that we see in the data. So do you think that's number 1, 2, or 3? Hopefully you picked number 3. That one is going to be the no correlation. So you don't need to do anything on your foldable yet. We're just having a discussion, and I will tell you when you need to start writing. So which one do you think is going to be the positive correlation, and which one do you think is going to be the negative? So we can tell there is a relationship in both graph number 1 and graph number 2, because we can see the points are gathered together, and in number 1 the points are trending upwards. So does that sound like it should be positive or negative? Again, hopefully you're thinking positive. And when we get into our graphing unit and start talking about slope, what you would notice is this has a positive slope. It's a positive correlation, which then means number 2 is going to be our negative correlation, right? Again, the points, there is a relationship. They are trending, they're gathered together, they're trending downward. Falling means it's going to be negative. So now let's take a look at that front of the foldable. And the first thing they're going to want us to do is show what this graph looks like. Well, that's what we just did on the last slide. So a positive correlation, if you recall, the points are gathered together and they are moving in an upward trend. So go ahead and you can show that. So now you will be drawing that on your foldable. So then a positive correlation, what that means is that as one value increases, the other increases. And we're going to show 2 upward arrows. So as one is going up, the other is also going up. To explain to you what I mean there, this is our x-axis. This is our y. So as X is increasing. As we go to the right, we count up. As that is increasing, I notice that my Y's are also going up. They're increasing. That's what that means. So then let's take a look at negative correlation. So first, let's draw our graph. So again, negative correlation means there is a relationship and it's negative. So the points are gathered, but they are falling. You can draw that on there. Now, positive correlation, we said as one value increases, the other value increases. So you might be thinking for negative correlation, as one value decreases, the other decreases. However, I'm going to stop you there. Don't write that. That is not actually correct. So we're going to write the definition and then I will explain to you why that's incorrect. So for negative correlation, as one value increases, the other decreases. So what that's going to look like is as one is increasing, one is going up, the other is going down. So again, that makes sense because if we look over at our graph with our x and our y-axis, as x is increasing, as we are going to the right, the y's are going down, right? As x is increasing, the y is decreasing. So you might say, well, so if they're both decreasing, then what is that? Well, let's go back and look at our previous slide. If we look at these as positives and negatives, going up is positive, going down is negative. If I have a positive over a positive, positive divided by positive is still positive. Well, if I have a negative divided by a negative, that still makes it positive, right? This is just saying if we were going down and left, that's what this is. It is still a positive correlation. So be careful with that. Negative, if we have a positive divided by a negative, it's still negative. That's the difference. So let's move on to no correlation. No correlation means there is no relationship between the data. Right? So that scatter plot is just going to have dots all over the place. No rhyme or reason, no trend, no relationship. They're just scattered. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at different relationship situations and we're going to decide where they fit, if they have a positive correlation, a negative correlation, or if there's no correlation at all. And we will open the flaps on the foldable and write them in there. So the first four we're going to look at here on this slide. So the first one we're looking at is education and income. So let me state something here to get it out of the way. We are talking generally speaking. There will always be outliers, right? We talked about outliers in our box plot. There will always be certain ones that don't fit. We're not talking 100% of the time. We're just saying, generally speaking, is there a relationship between these two things? So if we look at education and income, here's how we're going to measure this. We're going to look and say, as education increases, so the more education we get, generally speaking, what happens to income? Well, income is the money that you make. So the higher you go in education, usually, what do you think? Is there a relationship between that and what you get paid? Does it make your pay increase? Do you get paid less the more educated you are? Well, generally speaking, the higher education you get, the higher you get paid. Again, there's always outliers. So both of these are increasing. So which type of correlation is that? We've determined there is a relationship. It should go into the positive correlation. So you will open the positive correlation flap And inside, you will write education and income. So if you need time to do that, you can pause the video. I'm going to keep talking. So next, we look at number of pets a person has and the number of books a person has read. So as the number of pets a person has goes up, so the more pets they are getting, what's happening to the number of books they've read? Is there any relationship between how many pets the person has and the books they're reading? I'm going to say no. So this one is going to be no correlation. So open up the no correlation flap and you will write number of pets a person has and number of books a person has read. Next, number of days absent from school versus your math average. So as you are absent more, what usually happens to your math scores? Is there a relationship? And if there is, do the math scores go up or do they go down the more days you're absent? I hope you said down. Generally speaking, again, there's always some people that could be absent forever and still know what they're doing. But most of us, if we're missing the instruction, then we're not entirely sure what we're doing. So that, as one goes up, the other decreases. So that is a negative correlation. And I should probably label this. So open up the negative flap and write that in there. Just a quick reminder, on your data mastery test, remember that you can use your notes. So please don't be shortcutting this and thinking, I just don't need to write this down. Whatever you write down, you get to use on your test. So I highly recommend you take the time to do this. Okay, last one on this slide, test scores versus shoe sizes. So as your test scores go up, you're doing better on tests. What's happening to your feet? I hope you said nothing. That is a no correlation. So open up the no correlation flap and write that inside. Then we'll move forward and take a look at 4 more. Distance traveled versus the amount of gas in the car. So the further you're traveling, right, the longer you're traveling, what is happening to the amount of gas in the car? So be very careful. We're talking about the gas in the car, right? Different wording can mean different things. Well, as we're traveling, the gas in the car is going down because we're using it. So this one is a negative correlation. If I would have said distance traveled versus amount of gas used, would that also be a negative correlation? Let's see. So the further I'm traveling, the amount of gas used, so the further I'm traveling, I'm using more gas. So when I word it this way, this would be a positive correlation. So be very careful of the wording. Think about what's happening. Look at the second one, hours of studying versus grades. So the longer you spend studying, what should be happening to your grades? Right, they should be going up. So both of them are increasing. That would be a positive correlation. The next one has a word underlines. That's because they want you to pay particular attention to that word. So hours in the mall versus the amount of money spent. So the more time you spend in the mall, what's happening to the amount of money you're spending most likely? Right, the longer you're staying there, you're probably finding more things to buy, so you're spending more money. That would be a positive. Again, let me change the wording. So if I say hours in mall versus amount of money left. I say left, the longer you spend in the mall, the less money you probably have left to spend, right? The less you have left. So in that case, it would be a negative correlation. And the last one here, weight on a skateboard versus the speed of the skateboard. So this one I need to give you a little bit more information, or you could actually have two correct answers if I didn't qualify this a little bit. So what we are talking about is on flat ground. Not going down a hill, we're talking on flat ground. As the weight on the skateboard increases, so the heavier the weight on the skateboard on flat ground, what's happening to the speed of the skateboard? It is slowing down. So that would be a negative correlation. However, if I said going downhill, then the weight would be making it speed up. So then it would be a positive correlation. So once again, I'm just going to jump in here real quick. If you are getting confused or you have some questions, as always, please feel free to email me them, but be specific in what your question is so that I have something to answer. But I will gladly get back to you. And once you email me, make sure that you check your email for my response. All right, there is one more slide that has 3 more options. A person's height and a person's age. So as a person is getting taller, what is usually happening with their age? They're usually getting older, right? Both increasing would be a positive correlation. So again, you are writing these inside your foldable. You're opening each appropriate flap and writing these inside as your examples. The next one, how tall a person is and how fast they drive. So the taller somebody is, does that influence how fast they are driving? No, that's going to be a no correlation. I know some very tall people who drive way too fast, and I know some very short people who also do the same thing. No correlation between those, no relationship. And the last one that we're going to look at here, temperature and the number of people wearing jackets. I want you to try this for a second. I'll give you a moment. Now I'm going to ask you a question. As temperature increases, think, is it getting colder or hotter as temperature increases? It's getting hotter. So does that change what your first answer was? So if it's getting hotter, what typically is happening to the number of people wearing jackets? That's decreasing. The hotter it gets, the less people are wearing jackets. So this would be a negative correlation. Okay, so hopefully now you understand correlations. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or even look up some videos online about positive, negative, and no correlation and see if that's helpful. Hope you guys are having a good day. See you when I get back.